friends, I'm excited to share a new layout with you today for the Shimmerz Paints design team featuring the September Color Kitz. I absolutely love these kits. I love everything about them. On the left of the screen, you can see I took all of the colors in the color kit plus the bonus color in the bonus bundle, which is colder than ice, and I sprayed all of those and used my paintbrush to add all of those on there so you can kind of see the color palette for the September Color Kitz, and I absolutely love those. Right now what I'm doing is painting. This is a sheet of embellishments that come in the paper kits, and I am taking the paints from this month and painting them to match the layout that I'm going to be using for this project. So these are some of the patterned papers, and I knew I kind of wanted to have 4 different patterned papers going across the center of this layout. And I wanted to make sure all of them were equally vivid and bold. So I am taking the Colorings in Deep is the name of that color. And it is a flat color. So Colorings doesn't have the shimmer or shine. It's just pure, beautiful color. And then I took the Colder Than Ice Shimmerz, which has lots of shimmer and shine, and I added that on top of it. So all of that is on top of one of the patterned papers that's in the paper kits this month from Shimmerz. And it's just a navy blue and white striped patterned paper on that side that I'm painting. And I know I'm just going to be using one little square of it, so I only added the paint in the top left corner. And then I'm doing the same thing with this patterned paper. It just has yellow hearts on it. It's beautiful. But I wanted it to be more of a solid color than just the white background. So I added the Shimmerz Limoncello, which is the yellow color in the September Color Kits this month. And it is such a beautiful, shimmery, sweet yellow. And I loved adding both of those colors. So you can see I did go back and just kind of add some splatters just for some variation in color. And then I'm going to cut out my squares. So all of those squares are about, I think they're 3 by 4. So you can see here I'm going and just taking one of my little yellow markers, kind of a mustardy yellow color, and tracing around the hearts so that they stand out a little bit more. And then I am using the cut file that you get when you order the color kits. It always, for Shimmerz Paints, excuse me, it always comes with a beautiful cut file. So I am taking the cut file and adding color to each piece of it here. And then I also cut on the other side of the cutting mat here. I also cut the inside pieces to back the cut file with. So I always use my contour tool to cut out the filling pieces. I don't cut those by hand or anything. I use my Cricut for all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and also paint, and it's kind of hard to tell right now when it's laying down on the mat, but I'm painting little teeny tiny cut pieces that I'm going to be using to fill the cut file, all of the backing pieces. And then I did pull in 2 extra colors just from my stash. So one of them is that bright yellow that I'm using right now. That's Bumblebee Shimmerz, because I wanted 2 different yellows on. I wanted a lighter yellow, which the limoncello that I'm painting at this moment, that lighter yellow is from the color kits, and then Bumblebee was from a past kit. And then I also added in the Shimmerz Evergreen for the backing of the leaves. So that brighter green is not from the color kits this month, but you do have it if you have been purchasing the color kits. You build up a great stash, so that is all there. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm going to take some of those little pieces. I will not make you watch the whole process because that is a very tedious process, but I do use dry adhesive, like my tape runner, and then also wet adhesive, and that's really just to hold it in place for right now, and then the wet adhesive is to hold it permanently. And I'm going to back all of those little pieces off camera. So there you can see I kind of filled in everything. And now I'm going to add just a little bit more color on top. So I had the outlines painted, all different colors, and then the backing pieces painted. And then I'm also painting just a touch on top of the cut file. So on top of all that, just so the color kind of blends. And I play around with that for a little bit. And then the bright green that I had used, that evergreen, I wanted it to tone it down just a touch. So I went back with the Vibes Mysterious Green, which is from the color kits, and made it a little bit darker. So I know those 4 pattern papers are going to go kind of across the center of the layout. It's not exactly center, it's just above center, kind of offset to the top. And So now that I know where I kind of want them to go, I'm going to use the Shimmerz Colder Than Ice. So that's the bonus color. That's the color from the bonus bundle. So when you order the bonus bundle, you usually get a paint that's always beautiful and matches everything. And then also a sequin set that is, oh my gosh, the sequin set this month is fantastic. I love every little piece that's in that sequin set. So the bonus bundle is always a great add-on to the color kits. So I wanted a little bit of subtle blue color on the background, and you can tell that Colder Than Ice is really like an icy blue. It's a very pretty, light, gentle color, which I don't usually love light, gentle colors, but as a foundation, it's going to be great behind some other color that I'm going to add on top of it. So I am taking my ink dauber. So this is an ink daubing tool. It's just a little foam disc that attaches to my little dauber. And I am going to paint that little piece of foam on there with two colors. So I'm using the Creamies Red Necking that's from the Color Kits, and also the Colorings in Deep. And so I basically painted each half, and then I'm using it to make circles on the background. And I absolutely love how that looks when you add two different colors. And I do kind of like push it and twist just a touch when I touch it down to the paper. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit, because I want those colors to be blended and I don't want them to be like a perfect straight line up and down the center. And then I am taking here some of the Creamies Red Necking and adding splatters. And then I will also add a few splatters of the Bumblebee. So again, that's the color that is not in the color kits. That's just from my stash. You could do limoncello also, but limoncello is just a much lighter, more pastel yellow. And I wanted it to stand out just a little bit more. Okay, so I'm gonna let it dry for a minute and then use my paper towel to dry up whatever wasn't dry yet. And then I punched a circle using my circle punch that was the exact same size as my ink dauber. So I think that's a 1 inch. It might be 1 1/4 inch. It just so happens that my ink dauber is the exact same size as one of my circle punches. So I cut out a circle so that I could lay it over the circles that I had kind of stamped with that ink dauber. And I'm just taking a black pen. There's nothing special about the black pen except that it writes well. So it's just a black ballpoint pen. And I'm going and putting that circle down on top of each of those circles that I kind of stamped with the ink dauber and just tracing around it. And then I also am going to trace some circles that I did not fill in. So you can kind of see I'm just putting it down and making a few overlapping circles because I kind of want it to look a little whimsical. And you can see this is really simple. You could also use a black circle stamp if you have a black circle stamp. I've got tons of black circle stamps. I just didn't want to get them out. So I was like, oh, I could just do this with a circle that I punch. So it was just as easy. And I had it right there. And so I went ahead and did that. So you can see I'm just tracing some black lines. And then once I get the papers glued down and I start adding embellishments, I will go back and add a few more circles with the ink dauber, and then also a few more like traced circles. So right now I'm just starting with kind of keeping it tight to the patterned paper where I know the patterned paper is going to go, but I will end up going back and adding a little bit more. All right, so my photos are going to go there, and then the cut file that I worked so hard on, and then also those flowers that I painted at the very beginning. I spent some time off camera fussy cutting those out. And I did, just so you know, kind of snip in between each of the petals so that I could bend all of those petals up. So everywhere where there was kind of a black line in between each petal, I cut along that black line so that I would be able to fold up each of those petals individually. And then I'm using a really sweet pastel pink patterned paper. It was on the back of one of the other sheets that I used. And it's a really pretty pink. And I'm using that just to frame or to map my photos. And then I'm using my Tim Holtz Edge Distresser to distress those edges. And I added some craft foam behind each picture because I want them to stand up a little bit off the page. I want them to stand out. So they're popped up a little bit. And then that big cut file I also popped up on craft foam, and the craft foam for that one is just a little bit thicker than the craft foam I used on my photos. So even when I'm popping stuff up on, different, I always want everything to be on different levels. So I want some things to be lower, some things to be higher. Some things I glue straight back to the background because I want there to be variation. Like when you look at the layout, I want you to see all of the variation in textures and layers. And when the layers are at different levels, it kind of helps you to see all of those different textures and all the different variation. Okay, so here you can see I'm stamping a few more. And it looks way darker. For some reason right here where I stamp it, it looks way darker than it did the first time, but it dries and it's fine. It's not any darker than the other ones. It just kind of looks like that for a second. And you'll notice with my paintbrush, I did kind of like go back and make it go outside of the lines of a perfect circle. So I kind of wanted the ink to look like, oh, it's kind of dipping out of the circle a little bit. Because like always, I don't want it to be perfect. I don't want perfect circle. If I wanted perfect circles, I wouldn't use such a wet medium. I would use like a drier ink. But I want everything to kind of be a little bit whimsical, a little bit artsy. So I don't want any lines that are too straight. So I'm taking the flowers and putting those in. And then there were also in the ephemera set that came with the paper kits, there are these other fabulous flowers that are a little bit darker, some that are a little bit lighter. So I also spent some time cutting the white edges off of those so that I could tuck them here and there around the floral cluster. So there's a pretty vivid red one and some lighter pink ones. And so I use several of those. And you can see I'm just going with my paper towel and kind of drying it up just a touch. And then I'm putting that same circle down and tracing around it. And that's just giving me a black line frame around each of the circles. And it also helps you see that they're not perfect. They're outside of the lines. I love to color outside the lines. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I decided at first I wanted all of that paint and those mediums to be really close to the pattern paper. And then I decided really I wanted it to be kind of like top to bottom on the page. So I wanted your eye to kind of travel up and down that left side. So I do go and extend the paint just a little bit. This time I did the colder than ice on the blue half. So I kept the same red, the Creamy's rednecking. And then I did the Shimmer's colder than ice, and it does kind of give me a little variation in color and lots of beautiful shimmer with that Shimmer's color. And then I dropped one little drop from the nozzle of colorings in deep. I just dropped one little dot of color and kind of let it bleed about. And that turns out looking really beautiful with those two colors blended when it dries. And there, see, I'm taking my paintbrush and making it go outside of the circle just a little bit. And then I'm gonna add some more yellow splatters. Because like always, when I make this beautiful background and then I cover it up with lots of other things, lots of embellishments and things. So I wanted to make sure I didn't cover it all up. So I went back and added some more. Okay, and then this title is Loving Life it's a Bramble Fox Perspectives. And it was very lime green, like a lot more kind of neon-y lime green than the patterned paper. So I'm just taking some Posca markers. Those are like acrylic paint pens, and coloring on top of it. And I'm going to blend like I think I have 3 different green colors. So I started with just sort of a lighter green. And then I take that like forest green, that darker green, and kind of just go here and there and add a little drops of colors. And then with my finger, I'm just patting it on. So kind of spreading out that color. And if you look like super closely at that acrylic piece, like you can kind of see it's not perfect. It's not like the colors are not solid on there, but it's totally okay because it's beautiful. Like it turns out, I like how it looks with all of that kind of variation in color. Okay, then I pulled some thread out from my stash in matching. I think I only end up using the yellow, kind of that mustardy yellow thread. And then I also pulled out a darker blue, like a navy blue, that matches really pretty with that colorings in deep. I'm going to add some little tangled threads and then some little circles of thread. The big cut file, so it's got some beautiful lines and lots of intricate details, but the way I painted it, it was like too much flat color. I don't know. Something about the way I painted it, I felt like it needed more depth. And so instead of like going back and trying to repaint it, I just added another flower on top of it and kind of layered some things so it looks like it's sort of mixed in or behind with the floral cluster. And I end up liking a lot how that looks. So I put that bolder red flower on top with some thread behind it. And then I will end up, when I get to the sequins part, I'm going to go and add some of those on there. Okay, and then here I decided just below my photos, because I always want the attention to be drawn to my photos, I added on the sticker, there's a sticker sheet in the paper kits. And so there was a little piece, it almost looked like washi, like that navy blue washi. So I added that to a piece of cardstock and then stuck it down to a piece of cardstock, cut it out, and then distressed the edges with my edge distressor. And then I added a couple of flowers. So that's going to end up being a little sweet little cluster over there on that side. And then I'm going to add some journaling lines, and I end up adding lots of journaling to this layout. A lot of times when I am posting a project, I go back and add journaling afterwards because sometimes I want my words to be like just for my kids. But on this layout, I felt like it was really important to tell the story so that it kind of made sense what the photos were and why my kids, this was the night, and I'll just kind of tell you what the journaling says. So this was the night we got back we just went to Italy this summer, and the night after we flew in, and it was kind of late, so we went home. But then the next night, my husband was craving Mexican food because we had Italian for 2 weeks, and we love Mexican food here in Texas. And so we met my parents for dinner, but my son, he said, well, Mom, I haven't seen Nanny and Pop Pop in a while, so I'm going to get all dressed up. I want to get all dressed up to go to dinner with them. And I was like, okay. I didn't really, I was kind of thinking of polo and real shorts instead of athletic shorts, but he came down in a full suit. And I was like, oh my gosh, not only is it like 110 degrees outside, but you're way dressed up for a casual hole-in-the-wall Mexican restaurant. So but nonetheless, he wore his outfit, and then Ruby went and changed into a dress because she was like, well, if Bubba's going to look like that, I've got to dress up too. So she went and put on a dress, and so they were super dressed up and looked like they had come from church or a wedding or something really fancy, but it was super cute. So I had to take pictures with Nanny and Pop Pop because I just loved that they loved their Nanny and Pop Pop, and that's my parents, and they wanted to show that it was really important to them to get to eat with them once they got back from their trip. So it was all super sweet. All right, and then here I am taking the sequin set, and you can see there are some beautiful, almost looks like hand woven or hand strung flowers in that set, and then lots of different types of sequins, different sizes, different colors, all that coordinate beautifully and perfectly with the colors in the color kits. And so I added a bunch of those all around, and I absolutely adore all those, especially the little flowers that are in there. I love little pieces that are very unique, and I don't have anything else that looks like that, and I love that. So I added those. And then here what I'm doing, it sort of looked like on the top of that pattern paper, it was like it just very abruptly ended with white, with with the white background. And so I kind of wanted it to look just a little bit softer and a little bit more like, oh, we're easing into the color and the contrast there. So I took some of the little leftover painted paper that I had from when I cut the rectangles originally, and just ripped some pieces to kind of tuck behind up there. So I did a yellow strip, and then I did just a little teeny tiny piece of blue. And that added a little bit of texture as well as a little bit of dimension. And it just sort of softened that line, because now it's a all torn up line instead of a straight across line. And then what am I doing here? Oh, I added just another little cluster right there where the paper ends. Just added a few little flowers and some sequins. And then I added just a touch more of that colder than ice blue right there, just so the color kind of eased into the rest of the color, so that it didn't there wasn't like paint on the left side and nothing on the right side. So that kind of helped soften that line also. And then I'm taking pops of color in a metallic red, the blue, royal blue, and then a metallic yellow. And then here are some close-ups so you can see all of those different layers. And you can see, it's kind of even hard to see some of the paints because they're so shimmery and shiny that you kind of have to catch them just right in the light. And then I also added the epoxy, I forgot to say that yellow heart, the yellow with the red heart. And then there's a little plaid epoxy sticker that I also tucked in there right beside the photo. So mixed in with the clusters. And then look at those flowers and all that paint. Oh my gosh, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So there is the final layout. And then you can see all of that background work that I did. And I love that almost all of the embellishments, almost all of the ephemera is painted. It's something that I created and painted. There's a few little pieces from the ephemera set, but mostly it's just painted pieces, which I absolutely love that. There's a close-up of those flowers that are amazing. If you place an order with Shimmerz Paints, be sure to put my name, Sarah Millerhouse, in the comment section of your order, and you will get a free gift. I hope you will check out the Shimmerz Paints store and order these kits. They are fantastic. And I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.